My friends, I want you to understand a great secret of life. Nothing is withheld from you, except by the limitations of your own inner vision. The world you see outside is but a mirror of what you have consented to within yourself. So when I tell you that blessings you never expected are about to arrive, I do not speak of chance or luck or the favor of some distant power. I speak of the inevitable law that what you dare to accept in imagination must one day appear in your world. What you accept inwardly must manifest outwardly. This truth is not a philosophy to be admired from a distance, but a living principle that governs every detail of your life. The outer world, with all its circumstances, opportunities, and conditions, is not separate from you. It is the mirror of the inner state you have chosen to occupy. The moment you assume something about yourself, whether consciously or unconsciously, you have already set in motion the process by which that assumption takes form in the visible world. You may look upon your present situation and imagine that it is the cause, but it is only the effect. The cause is always within, in the deep, often unrecognized attitudes of the heart and mind. To accept something inwardly is more than a fleeting thought. It is the feeling of reality, the quiet conviction that what you imagine is already true. When you consent to an idea as though it were already fact, you are planting a seed in the soil of consciousness. That seed cannot help but grow. Just as no farmer would expect wheat from corn, you cannot expect joy from fear or abundance from a state of lack. Whatever is impressed upon the mind must express itself, for the inner and outer are one continuous movement of life. People often believe they are victims of chance, that life bestows blessings or burdens without rhyme or reason. But if you will observe carefully, you will see that the pattern of your world follows the pattern of your inner acceptance. If you dwell in thoughts of failure, even while praying for success, you have inwardly accepted failure as your truth, and it must appear. If you carry the belief that love will never come to you, then no matter how many people surround you, the experience of loneliness will persist because you have accepted it within yourself. But if you dare to change that inner agreement and feel that you are already successful, already loved, already blessed, then the world has no choice but to bend itself to that new state. This is not done by force, but by assumption. Assumption is quiet, effortless, like slipping into a garment. You do not need to strain to make it happen, for the acceptance itself is the creative act. When you put on the feeling of being wealthy, secure, or joyful, you have already created the reality. The world will only echo back to you what you have chosen to embody. You will find opportunities where none existed before, or you will be guided in ways you cannot trace, all because you inwardly change the state from which you live. You must understand that the outer world is neutral until you clothe it with meaning. Two people can face the same set of facts and live entirely different realities because each has accepted something different within. One sees possibility, the other limitation. One accepts victory, the other defeat. The facts themselves do not determine the outcome. The acceptance of those facts in consciousness does. The one who accepts success inwardly will see success outwardly, while the one who clings to doubt will find evidence to justify that doubt. Acceptance is not wishing. Wishing leaves the thing outside of you, something hoped for, but not possessed. Acceptance draws it inward, makes it part of you now. When you accept health, you feel health even before your body reveals it. When you accept wealth, you walk with the quiet confidence of one who already possesses it, even before a dollar appears. And this inner possession compels the outer to conform, for there is no separation between what is imagined and what is experienced. The discipline, then, is to watch carefully what you are accepting about yourself. You may think you are powerless because the evidence of your senses shows lack, difficulty, or delay. But the senses only reflect your former acceptance. They are the shadows cast by yesterday's thoughts. If you want to alter tomorrow's world, you must change today's acceptance. Withdraw your consent from every unworthy idea, and without effort you will find your world reshaping itself in accordance with your new inner truth. Imagination plants the seed, life brings the harvest. Everything you see around you began first as a thought, an image, or a possibility entertained within someone's imagination. The chair you sit on, the building you enter, the work you do, even the relationships you hold dear. All of these were once invisible seeds before they became visible facts. Imagination is not child's play, nor is it an idle escape from reality. It is the creative act itself, the unseen workshop where every form of your life is shaped. The moment you dare to imagine yourself differently, you are planting a seed in the fertile soil of consciousness. That seed, though invisible to the eye, contains within it the pattern of its own fulfillment. To imagine is to create in miniature, to sketch the blueprint of what will one day become concrete. Just as a gardener does not doubt that the seed hidden beneath the earth will push its way upward in due season, you must not doubt that what you vividly accept in imagination will one day appear as experience. The gardener does not dig up the soil each morning to see if the seed is growing. He trusts the unseen process. So too must you trust that life is always faithful to bring forth the harvest from the seeds you have planted in imagination. The harvest may not come in the way you expect, but it will come in perfect correspondence to the nature of the seed. Many struggle because they confuse wishing with imagining. Wishing keeps the desired thing far away, always just beyond reach, whereas imagination clothes you with the feeling of already being or having the thing you seek. To wish for abundance is to silently affirm that you do not yet possess it. To imagine abundance is to inwardly feast upon it, to walk as though it were already yours, to sense its reality in the unseen. That act of imaginative possession plants a seed so powerful that life itself cannot resist bringing it forth. Imagination does not require effort, it requires surrender. You need not force the picture, you need only dwell upon it until it feels natural, until you slip into it as easily as you slip into a familiar room. The longer you remain in that imaginal state, the more deeply the seed is planted. And once planted, it must bear fruit. You may not know the time or the manner of its appearance, but the appearance is certain. Life is the soil and imagination is the seed. Soil does not discriminate, it grows whatever is planted in it, whether weeds or flowers, lack or abundance. That is why it is vital to watch carefully what seeds you sow through your thoughts, feelings, and assumptions. Consider how often you plant seeds of doubt, fear, or failure without realizing it. Each time you rehearse a scene of loss, each time you accept worry as truth, you are planting a seed that must in time reveal itself as circumstances. Yet the same power that grows those weeds will also grow a harvest of joy, success, and love if you will but plant them in imagination. The soil does not argue with you. It does not ask whether you deserve the harvest. It simply brings forth in kind what you have planted. Life has an infinite intelligence for fulfilling these imaginal seeds. You may imagine yourself in health and suddenly find the right doctor, the right remedy, or even spontaneous renewal. You may imagine prosperity and find opportunities unfold in ways you never could have arranged. You may imagine love and discover that people are drawn to you as if by unseen strings. You do not need to plan the steps or force the outcome. The harvest comes through channels beyond your reasoning. The seed knows its way to fulfillment. The oak is already contained in the acorn. When you understand this, you cease to live as a beggar, hoping that life will one day grant you favor, and you begin to live as a creator, deliberately sowing the seeds of the experiences you desire. You no longer wonder whether your dreams are possible, for you know they are already real in imagination, and what is real within must in time become real without. Blessings arrive in unexpected, unreasoned ways. The mind often believes it must calculate, plan, and work out the exact manner in which its desires will unfold. It creates strategies, timelines, and conditions, thinking that fulfillment depends upon effort and control. But life does not move by the calculations of logic. It moves by the invisible wisdom of imagination and faith. The blessings that appear are rarely the ones you could have predicted, because imagination operates on a higher order than reason. What you imagine as real sets forces in motion that are beyond your conscious control, weaving together people, events, and circumstances in ways the intellect could never have orchestrated. When you hold a state inwardly, when you accept a new reality as already true, life bends itself to that inner acceptance. Yet it does not do so in the neat, linear path you might expect. A job offer comes from a place you had never applied. A friendship turns into an opportunity. A closed door forces you into a new direction. And in that direction lies the very fulfillment you sought. You call it coincidence, but it is law clothed in mystery. You say it is unexpected, but it is simply the unfolding of what you planted within, arriving through channels the rational mind could not foresee. The unexpected quality of blessings is not randomness, but precision. The moment you assume wealth, peace, or love, the whole fabric of life shifts to accommodate that assumption. Yet the way in which it happens often feels surprising, because it does not follow the rotes your intellect had imagined. You may have thought your success would come through one person, but instead it arrives through another. You may have imagined one path, but life opens a different one that leads you more directly for the fulfillment of your desire. The blessing is certain, but the manner of its arrival remains hidden until the moment it appears. If you rely only on reason, you will miss the wonder of this process. Reason will say, there is no way this can happen because I cannot see the steps. Reason will point to the visible facts and declare them final. But the unseen is always greater than the seen. The law of imagination works in the depths, beyond the reach of the senses, arranging what must be arranged, dissolving what must be dissolved, and building what must be built. By the time the blessing arrives, you may look back and marvel at how every detail, every so-called accident, every twist and turn was perfectly aligned to deliver it to you. It is in this unexpectedness that the joy is multiplied. If everything came exactly as you planned, there would be little wonder, little awe. But when the blessing arrives in a way you never could have conceived, you recognize that there is a power greater than your reasoning working on your behalf. It is the same power that moves the tides, grows the seed into a tree, and spins the planets in their courses. You participate in it through imagination, but you do not need to dictate its method. Your role is to accept the state. Life's role is to produce the harvest, and it does so with infinite creativity. Blessings often come disguised as interruptions, delays, or even losses. What you first resist as a problem may prove to be the very door through which your desire enters. A dismissal becomes the pathway to your true calling. A rejection redirects you to something far better than what you thought you wanted. A chance encounter alters the course of your life. At first glance, you may think life has denied you, but when the unexpected blessing is revealed, you see that it was not denial at all, but a greater fulfillment making its way to you. To live in this awareness is to rest from striving. You no longer attempt to force outcomes through effort or manipulation. You no longer limit yourself by demanding that your blessing come only through this person, this job, this circumstance. You know that the form is infinite, and life has countless ways to deliver what you have accepted inwardly. You need only remain faithful to the inner vision, confident that the outer will surprise you with its abundance. As within, so without, the law never fails. The life you see reflected in the outer world is not separate from the life you carry within yourself. Every event, every relationship, every condition that meets you on the path of life is a mirror image of the inner state you have chosen to occupy. The world outside is not a cause, but an effect, and it bends with exact fidelity to the shapes formed in consciousness. To look at your circumstances as though they are independent of your inner life is to misunderstand the law. The outer is always the echo of the inner, as faithful as a shadow to the body that casts it. You may believe that chance governs life, or that others hold the power to shape your destiny. But when you look closer, you will discover that nothing appears in your world without first being accepted in some measure within you. It might not be conscious acceptance. Much of what manifests arises from the silent assumptions you carry unnoticed day after day. Yet, whether conscious or unconscious, the principle remains the same. What is impressed upon the mind must be expressed in life. The law does not sometimes work and sometimes fail. It is constant, impartial, and unwavering. This constancy can be a source of fear if you dwell upon negative states, but it is also the source of the greatest freedom. For if life reflects what you hold within, then you are not bound to remain as you are. By altering the state of consciousness you accept as true, you alter the entire course of your experience. The law does not resist, it yields. The moment you step into a new inner assumption, the outer world begins to rearrange itself to mirror that choice. You need not struggle with the outer, you need only transform the inner. Consider how often people fight with conditions, believing that by sheer force they can alter them. They argue with appearances, wrestle with circumstances, and exhaust themselves in resistance. But the law is never broken as within, so without. Until the inner changes, the outer remains stubborn because it has no life of its own. It is only the projection of your own state of consciousness. When you take your attention from appearances and instead give it to the imaginal act of already being who you desire to be, the mirror must eventually reflect that new image. The shadow cannot refuse to follow the body, and the world cannot refuse to follow the state. The power of this law lies in its impersonality. It does not ask whether what you accept is good or bad, wise or foolish. It simply reflects it. That is why the responsibility rests with you to choose deliberately what states you inhabit. If you live in fear, life faithfully produces fearful circumstances. If you live in joy, life faithfully produces joyful circumstances. The law does not discriminate, it magnifies what you have planted, whether weeds or flowers. To change the harvest, you must change the seed. This is why inner vision is greater than outer sight. The senses show you what already has been accepted, but imagination shows you what can be. When you persist in an inner state, no matter what the senses report, you are planting the future. The world may not change at once, but the law is unfailing, and in due season the outer must conform to the inner. The one who understands this no longer waits passively for blessings to arrive, nor do they beg or plead with life. They assume the state inwardly, knowing that life has no choice but to reflect it outwardly. The great mistake is to think the law has failed simply because the harvest has not yet appeared. But delay is not denial. It is only the time required for the unseen to crystallize into form. Every imaginal act is a seed, and every seed has its appointed time of growth. You may not know the exact hour, but the outcome is certain. To the one who lives faithfully in the inner world, the outer world is a continual unfolding of that inner truth. And because the law never fails, what is held within must one day stand without, clothed in flesh and circumstance. For the world is only the mirror of your imagination.